During the period of decline and modernization of the Ottoman Empire, the empire faced challenges in defending itself against foreign invasion and occupation. The empire ceased to enter conflicts on its own and began to forge alliances with European countries such as France, the Netherlands, Britain and Russia. The rise of nationalism affected territories within the empire. The attempted Tanzimat reforms to modernize the empire were not enough to catch up to Western development. The stagnation and reform of the Ottoman Empire ended with the dismemberment of Ottoman classical army by what is known as the Auspicious Incident, but creating a new military took multiple sultans with multiple reorganizations during this period. At the end of this period, marked with the Second Constitutional Era in 1908, with a degree Ottoman military became modernized and professionalized in the form of European armies. The period was an important restructuring and modernization period which most of the parameters were improving, but for the reasons explained in the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the period followed by defeat and dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. Main issues of the period: rise of nationalism. The rise of nationalism swept through many countries during the 19th century, and it affected territories within the Ottoman Empire. A burgeoning national consciousness, together with a growing sense of ethnic nationalism, made nationalistic thought one of the most significant Western ideas imported to the Ottoman Empire. The empire was forced to deal with nationalism from both within and beyond its borders. The number of revolutionary, secret societies which turned into political parties during the next period rose dramatically. Uprisings in Ottoman territory had many far-reaching consequences during the 19th century, and determined much of the Ottoman policy during the early 20th century. Many Ottoman ruling elite questioned whether the policies of the state were to blame. Some felt that the sources of ethnic conflicts were external, and unrelated to issues of governance. While this era was not without some successes, the ability of the Ottoman state to have any effect on ethnic uprisings was seriously called into question. Russian extension. The Russian extension in this century developed with the main theme of supporting independence of Ottoman's former provinces and then bringing all of the Slav peoples of the Balkans under Bulgaria, or using Armenians in the east, sets the stage. At the end of the century, from Russian perspective, Romania, Serbia and Montenegro and autonomy of Bulgaria was achieved. That along the great powers. After the Congress of Berlin, the Russian expansion was controlled through stopping the expansion of Bulgaria. The Russian public felt that at the end of Congress of Berlin thousands of Russian soldiers had died for nothing. Effective defense. Military of the Ottoman Empire was not an effective organization as the empire began to lose wars and land during stagnation and reform of the Ottoman Empire opposed to periods in rise and growth of the Ottoman Empire. Selim III came to the throne with an ambitious effort in military reforms in 1789. He failed. Selim III was replaced by Mahmud II in 1808, who established martial law of Alemdar Mustafa Pasha. His first task was to ally with the Janissaries in order to break the power of the provincial governors. He then turned on the Janissaries and removed them from power during Auspicious Incident in 1826. Efforts for a new system began following the Auspicious Incident. The stagnation and reform of the Ottoman Empire ended with the dismemberment of Ottoman classical army. The issue during the decline and modernization of the Ottoman Empire was to create a military that could win wars and bring security to its subjects. That goal took multiple sultans with multiple reorganizations during this period. At the end of this period, with the Second Constitutional Era in 1908, with a degree of Ottoman military became modernized and professionalized in the form of European armies. Modernization 1828 to 1839. 1808 to 1839. Mahmud II had to deal with multiple issues inherited from generations past. These issues lasted all through his reign. Shortly, the Eastern question with Russia, England, and France, and military problems arising from mutinous Janissaries and factious ulamas. He also faced numerous internal conflicts with Egyptians, Wahhabis, Serbians, Albanians, Greeks and Syrians, and had administrative problems from rebellious pashas, who would fain have founded new kingdoms on the ruins of the House of Osman. Mahmud understood the growing problems of the state and the approaching overthrow of the monarchy, and began to deal with the problems as he saw them. For example, he closed the court of confiscations, and took away much of the power of the pashas. He personally set an example of reform by regularly attending the divan, or state council. The practice of the sultans avoiding the divan had been introduced in the reign of Sulayman I, and was considered to be one of the causes of the decline of the empire. The avoiding of divan extended nearly 2 centuries before Mahmud II's time. Mahmud II also addressed some of the worst abuses connected with the Vakifs by placing their revenues under state administration. However, he did not venture to apply this vast mass of property to the general purposes of the government. National awakening of Serbs, 1810s. In 1804 the Serbian Revolution against Ottoman rule erupted in the Balkans, running in parallel with the Napoleonic invasion. By 1817, when the revolution ended, Serbia was raised to the status of self-governing monarchy under nominal Ottoman suzerainty. In 1821 the First Hellenic Republic became the first Balkan country to achieve its independence from the Ottoman Empire. It was officially recognized by the Porte in 1829, after the end of the Greek War of Independence. National awakening of Greeks, 1820s. In 1814, a secret organization called the Philokiateria was founded with the aim of liberating Greece. The Philokiateria planned to launch revolts in the Peloponnese, the Danubian principalities, and capital with its surrounding areas. The first of these revolts began on 6 March 1821 in the Danubian principalities, which was put down by the Ottomans. On 17 March 1821, the Maniates declared war, which was the start of revolutionary actions from other controlled states. In October 1821, Theodoros Kolokotronis had captured Tripolitsa, followed by other revolts in Crete, Macedonia, and central Greece. Tensions soon developed among different Greek factions, leading to 2 consecutive civil wars. Mehmet Ali of Egypt, who agreed to send his son Ibrahim Pasha to Greece with an army to suppress the revolt in return for territorial gain. By the end of 1825, most of the Peloponnese was under Egyptian control, and the city of Missolonghi, put under siege, fell in April 1826. Ibrahim had succeeded in suppressing most of the revolt in the Peloponnese, and Athens had been retaken. Russia, Britain and France decided to intervene in the conflict, and each nation sent a navy to Greece. Following news that combined Ottoman-Egyptian fleets were going to attack the Greek island of Hydra, the Allied fleet intercepted the Ottoman-Egyptian fleet in the Battle of Navarino. Following a week-long standoff, a battle began which resulted in the destruction of the Ottoman-Egyptian fleet. With the help of a French expeditionary force proceeded to the captured part of central Greece by 1828. The Greek War of Independence saw the beginning of the spread of the Western notion of nationalism, stimulated the rise of nationalism under the Ottoman Empire, and eventually caused the breakdown of the Ottoman millet concept. Unquestionably, the concept of nationhood prevalent in the Ottoman Empire was different from the current one, as it was centered on religion. The auspicious incident, 1826. Mahmud II's most notable achievements include the abolition of the Janissary Corps in 1826, the establishment of a modern Ottoman army, and the preparation of the Tanzimat reforms in 1839. By 1826, the Sultan was ready to move against the Janissary in favor of a more modern military. Mahmud II incited them to revolt on purpose, describing it as the Sultan's coup against the Janissaries. The Sultan informed him, through a fatwa, that he was forming a new army, organized and trained along modern European lines. As predicted, they mutinied, advancing on the Sultan's palace. In the ensuing fight, the Janissary barracks were set in flames by artillery fire, resulting in 4,000 Janissary fatalities. The survivors were either exiled or executed, and the possessions were confiscated by the Sultan. This event is now called the Auspicious Incident. The last of the Janissaries were then put to death by decapitation in what was later called the Blood Tower, in Thessaloniki. These marked the beginning of the modernization and had immediate effects such as introducing European-style clothing, architecture, legislation, institutional organization and land reform. War with Russia, 1828–1829. The Russo-Turkish War of 1828–1829 did not give him time to organize a new army, and the Sultan was forced to fight with these young and undisciplined recruits against the veterans of the Tsar. The war was brought to a close by the disastrous Treaty of Adrianople, while the reforms in question were mainly implemented to improve the military. The most notable development that arose out of these efforts was a series of schools teaching everything from math to medicine to train new officers. Egypt, 1830s. Later in his reign, Mahmud became involved in disputes with the Wali of Egypt and Sudan, Muhammad Ali, who was technically Mahmud's vassal. The Sultan had asked for Muhammad Ali's help in suppressing a rebellion in Greece, but had not paid the promised price for his services. In 1831, Muhammad Ali declared war and managed to take control of Syria and Arabia by the war's end in 1833. In 1839, Mahmud resumed the war, hoping to recover his losses, but he died at the time news was on its way to Constantinople that the empire's army had been signally defeated at Nazib by an Egyptian army led by Muhammad Ali's son, Ibrahim Pasha. Economy. In his time, the financial situation of the empire was dire, and certain social classes had long been oppressed by burdensome taxes. In dealing with the complicated questions that arose, Mahmud II is considered to have demonstrated the best spirit of the Coprolists. A firman of the 22nd of February 1834 abolished the vexatious charges which public functionaries, when traversing the provinces, had long been accustomed to take from the inhabitants. By the same edict all collection of money, except for the 2 regular half-yearly periods, was denounced as an abuse. "No one is ignorant," said Sultan Mahmud II in this document, "that I am bound to afford support to all my subjects against vexatious proceedings, to endeavor unceasingly to lighten, instead of increasing their burdens, and to ensure peace and tranquility. Therefore, those acts of oppression are at once contrary to the will of God, and to my imperial orders. The harak, or capitation tax, though moderate and exempting those who paid it from military service, had long been made an engine of gross tyranny through the insolence and misconduct of government collectors. The firman of 1834 abolished the old mode of levying it, and ordained that it should be raised by a commission composed of the Cadi, the Muslim governors, and the ayans, or municipal chiefs of rayas in each district. Many other financial improvements were effected. By another important series of measures, the administrative government was simplified and strengthened, and a large number of sinecure offices were abolished. Sultan Mahmud II gave a valuable personal example of good sense and economy, organized the imperial household, suppressed all titles without duties, and eliminated all the positions of salaried officials without functions.